Hello. I'm just going to bullshit talking right now because we don't know when we're actually going to get live. This is Shawn Crowder, and he's next to me, and we are live. Yay! The internet can see you now. Cool. How's it going, Nassim?
Oh,
hey.
What's
Hello.
going
on? This is my friend Shawn Crowder, and he is a drummer and also runs a YouTube channel called Learn Japanese in a Year. I'm going to turn down the background music, which is Dorian concept. Yeah, this is Sungazer that's sitting.
Yeah.
Somebody, hold on. Somebody asked to show me the sweet jazz chords.
Oh, come on, Adam.
There we go. Oh, that's too big? That is too big. Okay, cool. Bald is the new sexy. Cool. Yeah,
Thank
I know.
you.
You're the Sungazer crew, yes. Talk about Rousseau, the 17th century music theorist. Great. Watching you from the CAF at Berkeley.
Whoa. What up, Berkeley?
Is it? I haven't actually been back since it's the new CAF rather than just the basement of 150. The new CAF is so much better. Yeah, so this is Shawn. This is the other half of Sungazer, and Shawn is in between tours right now. He tours all the time with this Tunisian singer by the name of Amel Malfoufi. And where are you going? Where's your flight tonight?
Flight tonight is to Zurich and then continuing to Vienna. We're going to play in Krems, Austria.
Austria. Not Australia, for you Americans watching.
Different place.
Different place. So somebody asks, there's so many questions already. It's just a stream of questions.
Oh, man,
and
here we go.
I can't even see any of them. Show me where you got and explain to us the quintuplet swing J Dilla thing.
Whoa.
All right, Shawn, you're up.
All right, let's hit that. So I think that the first place I heard something like that was a YouTube video of Vinny Caliuta. And it was just a very short moment in a drum solo. And I couldn't even tell you the name of that video. I have no idea where it is. I just lost it completely. But around the same time, I was getting deep into that stuff at Berkeley and studying with Mike Mangini and getting into all the tuplets, not just fives, but sevens and everything up to like 19s. And we were doing it in a really precise way because he had this great method for teaching it. So that's where it came from, and trying to explore those rhythms in a way that didn't sound obnoxiously like, hey, we're doing a complicated thing now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's what you're thinking in your head while you're doing it. But
yeah.
Well, the thing that's kind of blown my mind in recent years is that a lot of like producers now, like if you look quintuplet swing on like YouTube, there's a bunch of producers which figured out how to do like all the subdivisions and stuff in Ableton, and I think you can do it in Logic too, where you can basically come up with the subdivision of a quintuplet or a septuplet and play certain beats and approximate this sort of like wonky J Dilla thing. So
yeah, there is a way in Logic, I know, to make custom like quantization templates. So you can do any tuplet. There's a whole technique for that.
Fun fact, you know, like I think there's on one of the music, I'm part of all these dumb groups on Facebook, but there's a way of like, you can look up like Latin prefixes to like figure out like what the technical term for like an 11 tuplet is, or like 17 tuplet. Yeah. And they're really fun. I forget what an 11 tuplet is, but
man, it's gotta be a mouthful.
It's amazing. Anyway.
Nice.
Cool. So other questions, I don't know. Can you read any of those, Shawn?
Okay, what do we got here? DeAnthony Parks, awesome.
Sick.
What do you think?
Oh, DeAnthony Parks. Oh yeah.
That was the whole comment.
DeAnthony Parks.
I agree.
Just like I agree. Wolfpack. Yes.
Let's see. Love your channel, Adam.
Oh well, thank you. Bye. So many questions. I love that Adam is as awkward as I imagined him to be. I'm very awkward. I can talk, but it's not particularly socially great. Anyway,
I think you're cool, Adam.
Thank you. My friend thinks I'm cool. That's cool. Whoa, I'm learning Japanese, and I'm in a Japanese a cappella group.
Oh, cool.
Have you used music to try to learn Japanese at all? Oh, that's an interesting question.
I've listened to a little bit of Japanese music. I haven't really used it to learn. Uh, it's one of those things like I haven't really used music that much to learn languages as far as like using songs in that language. And I actually find like honestly I have a really hard time understanding lyrics in English. So it's a lot harder to do that with another language.
That's funny. I mean, it seems like it's much more about the process of learning music and the process, the steps necessary versus like this is a Japanese song. And you can use it to learn.
Although I do feel like that's something you can use in the later stages once you understand it more. It's not so useful as a beginner, I think, because you just have to learn some words and stuff first.
Gotcha. Well, just FYI, we have a super chat. Look into the camera and rub each other's heads. I'm not going to do that for $2.
That's going to cost more than $2.
It's a bigger super chat than $2. But thank you for the comment. Suggestions to live performance. General suggestions. Be prepared before you get on stage. Just try and make sure that you know what you're going to do. And do it a lot. Like one of the things that I think about is that when you first start performing live, every live performance seems like it's the most important live performance you'll ever do. And like, hey, if I just impress the right people at this live performance, everything's going to be amazing and whatever. And then when you inevitably don't do a perfect job because it's your first live performance ever, your feelings of self-doubt will amplify. Don't be precious about live performances. Just do them a lot. And the more you do it, the more you realize that nothing really matters. The live performance doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters. You have to care a lot, but if you didn't do as well as you imagined in your head, it's not the end of the world. You just have to learn how to like stay present and stay focused in the moment. That's how I think about it. But
yeah, I think you should care a lot about the process of like learning music over a long period of time, but not about any individual show or event.
I agree. Air guitar battle.
I'm not very good at guitar, but air guitar is a different story.
I actually have injured my hand and I can't do air guitar. That's the reason why I can't do an air guitar battle right now. But Shawn would love to show his prowess at air guitar right now.
Well, I forgot my air guitar. It's at home. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If he's traveling, all of his stuff is like, that's his SPD and like cymbals back there. That's all he has. He doesn't have his air guitar with him.
I don't want to risk on the plane,
Yeah, with the FAA, like the air guitar rules recently are just not. It's not great. Anyway, other questions. Let's eeny, meeny, miny, moe it. When you say, can you sing what you're playing, do you mean like sing accurately all the notes and intervals because I'm a terrible singer? No, it's mainly the idea of pre-hearing what you are playing. And basically, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's something that I say in a lot of my how to not suck at music videos, which is you should always be able to sing back whatever it is you just played. And that comes to pre-conceptualizing what you're going to play, hearing ahead of time what you're going to play, and not letting your hands and fingers and limbs dictate what you're playing. So trying to have a very strong conception of the music before you actually execute it. And, when you're starting out, you're going to try and play all the scales as fast as you can, but that you're not really hearing the scales. Like, it's hard to, like, really conceptualize a fast scale as, like, this is the music I want to make. No, your fingers are just doing it because that's what you practiced. And so the whole concept, I think, about, like, singing what you're playing is more just having a strong conceptualization. The better you physically can sing, the better. But, for drummers, you can't really sing.
Yeah, it's
tricky. Can you sing? Or, like...
No. No, but on that point, I remember there was one time at Berkeley, it was like the first semester or the first year for sure, and I had a lesson where we were working on soloing or something, and the guy was like, okay, well, play something for me. And I did for like a minute, and at the end of it, he was like, do you have any idea what you just played? Like, were you aware of what you were just playing? I was like, well... Actually, I guess not really.
That's
and
funny.
I mean, it seems like such an obvious thing, but at the time it was like, okay, this is something I really need to pay attention to play with intention. And
Yeah, that like playing with intention thing is mainly what I mean by can you sing what you just played is the stronger your intent, the more musical it will be, or the more people will believe what it is that you're doing. It won't just be like, all right, great, you just played drums real fast, congratulations. It will be like, oh wow, you played drums real fast and you really knew what the hell you were doing, and that said something a little bit more meaningful to me as the listener. So
yeah.
Excuse me. We have a super chat from Tony Atkinson. If someone is classically trained musician, do you think it makes it easier to learn the drums? Shawn, as the drummer.
Well,
maybe like classical
yeah,
percussion.
let me think. Because, yeah, I would say, I don't know. I wanna support both sides of the argument because I think both are possible. Here's the advantage you have with being classically trained, because I did that. I mean, I did concert band and symphonic stuff and all of that in high school. And I think the advantage that you get from that is being able to read music and, you know, some of the theory. And even though you don't necessarily need to read music for all kinds of gigs, it's a very convenient and fast way to learn. So you have access to all these books now and resources that you can use, and you can write notes down much more easily, and it makes it easier to understand and conceptualize the music, I think, if you can see it written down.
Yeah, I mean, people ask all the time, and of course, like on the channel, the kinds of people who would watch this channel are generally going to be more watching it for the more eggheady theory type things anyway. Yeah. But you know, there's still people saying like, oh, do you even really need to learn like the more traditional formal training? And
yeah.
A thing that I say a bunch is that you don't need to actually go to music school for the formal training. It definitely helps. It's more about being in school surrounded by people who are interested in the formal training. So being people who really want to like study and like try and adopt that body of knowledge. And because you're surrounded by people who are similar and you're in that environment, it aids your musicianship even more so. So
for sure, it's the environment. Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to Dylan Collins. Thanks for your vids. I managed to get into BIM bass. What is BIM again? That's the Bass Institute Music. Maybe somebody can let me know. I'm sorry. Do you know what BIM is?
I don't know what BIM is.
I'm very sheltered musician, or very sheltered New York musician, so I don't know what BIM is. I'm sorry. I've heard of it though. UK. It's in the UK. Okay, that's what I thought.
Shawn, any tips for sight reading drum music? Or sight reading drum parts?
Sight reading drum parts. Brighton Institute. Okay, Brighton Institute of Modern Music. Okay. That's what it is. Okay. I thought British and Irish Institute of Modern Music. British? Brighton. I feel like it's Brighton. That sounds... Maybe maybe it's in Brighton. Anyway. So, Shawn. Sight reading drum parts. Go.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would say just do it a lot, and I hate that answer. I wish I could give something more practical and useful. There probably is a better way to develop that than just doing it. A lot, yeah. But I can't remember doing anything necessarily specific to I don't know, to help with that. So, but I started reading music at the same time I started playing music. So I don't remember a period playing music where I couldn't also read it. You know, it started with piano lessons and then the drum lessons in band, the percussion stuff. So it was always connected for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I get that question a lot, or get questions where there really is only an answer that is you have to do it a lot and suck it up, and there's no exercises. Because with, like, you know, when you're learning a concept, when you're learning like quintuplets or whatever, you know, there's different ways of approaching it. When you're learning the melodic minor scale, there are different ways of approaching it, different ways of conceptualizing it. But when you're doing sight reading, it's pretty easy to get the idea intellectually in the first 5 minutes. Yeah. And then beyond that, it's
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Maybe a parallel that actually might help is right now I'm learning Japanese, and I'm learning to read it as well as to speak it. And I've been studying now for what, close to 9 months, and I'm still very slow to read, even with stuff that I know what it is. Like, I know all the words. It still takes me a long time to decipher all those characters and go through it. And it does get faster, but I think that it just takes time, and you have to get a lot of exposure to those characters. I mean, it must be the same for music, because that's all music notation is a symbol to represent what you're playing. So
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm wondering if we can like maybe think a little bit more about the relationship of characters, like whether they're Roman characters or kanji or whatever.
Yeah.
What like the relationship of those things on the page to the actual sounds that you're making, because on a music notation there's grid. It's like almost an XY axis, for at least for melodic instruments, and for drums it's kind of more an X axis. This is how it fits to the rhythmic grid, but there's also like an up and down. And is there any such thing in like language notation, if that is such a thing?
Well, you definitely have the left to right.
Yeah, that's true. That's
there.
But
well, I guess because the up and down in music, that's a way to represent pitch,
right?
And so you have different variables besides pitch in language. You have the different sounds you can make, and there's different ways of representing that. So it's not represented up and down, I guess, but
I guess that's just a difference between the two. But I think that's maybe a topic for a future video. I don't know. Interesting. Glad y'all going live, speaking the gospel of music. Hallelujah. I mean, I guess music's cool. It's all right. On a similar topic, you might dig Leonard Bernstein's lecture on parallels, linguistics, and music. Yes, we were. Where did that book go? Where did I throw that book?
Oh, yeah, he has it here.
Yeah, there's It's called the Unanswered Question, the Norton Lectures. Leonard Bernstein's like lectures on linguistics and music. It's fascinating. It's really interesting. I have like the book version of it, and it's all on YouTube for free. It's like 6 hours of lectures, and it's pretty incredible. Anyway.
And what was the theory behind that? What was the...
Yes,
because you told me a little bit about this, but I don't remember exactly.
So yeah, it was he was trying to come up with a universal grammar of music. So the same way that Chomsky has a universal grammar of language in terms of how language comes to be, and trying to have a universal logic that could be equally applied for every language. Bernstein was trying to come up with a logic for music, and like a linguistic logic for music, and different like levels of semantics. And the classic way of thinking about it is like a note is like a letter, and like a phrase is like a word. That's kind of like like oversimplification of the thing. But he kind of deconstructs it in a way that makes it a little bit more make a little bit more sense. And anyway, so that's the general gist of it. But I need to watch it again, because I haven't seen it in a while. But it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I want to check it out.
Sorry, I just want to check out. Hi, Dean Gregory. In Indian classical music, there are bowls, mnemonic syllables pronounced as bowls, like poles. Would love to see you play along with bowls. Funky. Okay, cool, interesting. Is that that's not the syllables like the takadimi and takita and all that stuff, right? Or is that or?
I don't know. I'm gonna plead ignorance on that.
Takita. I know that.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, I never, unfortunately, studied that.
I know Ben Levin has some videos on that. We know Ben from school, from Berkeley, and he's into that a little bit. But that is one thing that I know very little about, is I guess any of that Indian solfege stuff.
And just reminded me, I saw an incredible video recently. I think it was the Berkeley Indian something or other ensemble, and you can probably look it up online, and they are like crazy good
with like all the
They had some guest artists coming in, and
Oh, cool. I think
but
I
it
did,
was like
I did see that, yeah.
super high level playing. It was really insane.
I did see that. Berkeley's really good at branding them,
Yeah.
like putting their label on a video that they know is going to go viral.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that. If anything,
They-
Berkeley is great at marketing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zach Hansen writes, I'm auditioning for a party band for bass and drums. What should I expect? How should I prepare? And how should an audition go? Well, bass and drums, that like at the same time, that's probably not ideal. I mean, prepare a pop song that, you know, party bands will play. Uptown Funk is a good one for bass because it's a fairly complicated bass line. It shows your versatility just in terms of being able to nail all of those fills because it's actually fairly involved with all that stuff. I mean, show that you are super comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, as a general audition tip, just as like can't talk, as prepared as you possibly can be if you to go into an audition.
Yeah, I'd say the same for drums. I mean, even a song like Uptown Funk is probably a good one because not that it's a hard drum song, but there are a lot of little details. And if you can catch those and show the band leader that you know that all that stuff is happening, that's a good thing.
Yeah, the more that you can seem like you really know what you're doing. That's
yeah, you know, like I remember in the early days in New York doing a lot of these singer-songwriter gigs and stuff, and I would listen and try and catch little details that the singer was doing in their guitar or whatever at certain points in the music. And the thing that I would aim for is there would be these little details and moments where like you would hit a rhythm with them and they would like look back and smile like, oh yeah, man, like you check that part out. Like most people don't even bother with that. It's like those little moments that I go out of my way to make happen in a show, especially when playing with somebody new.
Yeah, I mean that definitely helps. I remember there's what was his name? Anthony
Mulca. It's an Irish name that I never got my
Anthony.
He's a great guy and great singer songwriter.
But there was like one which was technically in 6/8, but he played it as if it was in like a 5 subdivision.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really hip, but
without intending to be.
But
it was it was interesting, just like a lazy 6/8, but like dragging so much. And I remember you showing me that, and it was like, you really shouldn't play any 5 subdivisions over that because it sounds like all of a sudden this like nice lazy sort of 6/8 groove becomes this like prog explosion. Playlist tunes, right? My neighbor knocked on my door this morning at 3 a.m. Can you believe him? Lucky for him, I was still up playing drums.
Nice work.
Good job. Sean, what's the fastest BPM you can play? How fast can you play?
Whole notes at 1,000 BPM.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Wow. I can see how that breaks down. That's pretty fast.
I can do double tied whole notes at like 1 million.
So many. Does talent have a main role in becoming a great musician? I don't think so. I think it's purely work. I think it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've always wondered like about that question, talent versus skill that you've developed. And I think a lot of it comes down to like how you define talent.
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing to nail down because that means so many different things. But personally, I always felt like I had to work for everything on the drums. Like none of it came automatically. So I don't know. Perhaps a talent can be the sort of personality that sits down and is really obsessed and does that kind of work. But I don't know.
I honestly think that's the thing. The talent is more in the kind of personality you have versus any ability that you have. Because in high school or earlier on, there might be people who are adept at something for a variety of reasons. Like, I don't know what those reasons might be, but they might seem like they pick something up and then they get it instantly. And they might be adept at that because of prior experience or just being familiar with it or just any number of things, but being adept is different than being skilled. And the skill can only come from obsessive practice, at least from what I've seen. Like the only people I see who are able to do things at a ridiculous level obsessively play all the time. And it's that sort of single-mindedness that really leads to it, I think. Which, for personal reasons could be a good and bad thing too, because if you are single-mindedly obsessed on one thing, that means that you aren't thinking about other things in your life. But,
right.
That is, that's how I think about it. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's fun hanging out with Shawn on the live stream because we were roommates for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years at this place in South Williamsburg, Brooklyn. We called the Echo Chamber for a variety of reasons, but
which, by the way, you'll see that name in different places, maybe on the Sungazer recordings
and if you haven't, by the way, checked out the Sungazer videos, there's a video for every Sungazer song. They're all on Shawn's music channel, Shawn Crowder. We filmed all of them, and there's some secret bonus Sungazer songs on Shawn's channel. So anyway, we did a recording session yesterday for like new stuff, which was interesting, and I'll vlog about that some more.
Speaking of that, there's a question about it.
Oh, sorry.
The one in yellow there.
Oh yeah, okay. Shy Guy Infinity. How do you write? Thank you for the super chat, by the way. How do you write good drum/rhythm parts? How do you write good rhythm parts?
Well, I say that because we did this yesterday.
Okay.
We had this impromptu session, and we just decided to go into the studio basically cold.
We knew nothing. We didn't know what we were going to play.
Yeah, we didn't. And it's interesting to see how that process happens when you have to do it really fast. And I guess our process was that we had a handful of very vague ideas, or tempos even.
Yeah. So the names of one was 7 on the Floor. That was the name. That's all we came up with. What was another one? Halftime.
Halftime.
That was Halftime.
Nice and funky.
4 Against 3. That was another one. It's good, catchy song titles.
Yeah.
And we literally just told the engineer, hey, here's the tempo. They'll see you on the other side. And, the whole thought process behind the whole thing was interesting because when we originally started doing the Sungazer things, it was literally just Shawn doing a drum solo. And then I added a bunch of stuff later. And then that became the song. And then we later deconstructed it. And this time it was both of us coming up with a solo at the same time-ish. And it was, we'll see how it turns out. I don't know what it's going to be, but, so this person has been spamming, with a lot of blue whales, and I just want to answer their question, but, and maybe Shawn can talk a little bit more about drum parts later, but I would like to ask, when is enough to stop changing / modifying a song? I mean, do you ever feel fully happy with a song that you do and play alone? Also, will you marry me? Nope, not going to marry you. Sorry. And 2, there's a good quote. I think it's, art is never finished. It's only abandoned. You need to know when you need to abandon a song for the next one. Yeah.
I think it's more about when you run out of time. That's when it's done.
And, it's all right, we're done. There's nothing.
Yeah. There's a certain point where you just have to leave it be. You have to let it be done. Yeah. Otherwise you'll just tweak it forever.
And whenever you first do a thing, whenever you're like, this is my debut album, it has to be amazing, it has to be perfect. If you have too much control over it, you are going to start tweaking, and then to the point where you hate it, and to the point where you just think that it's terrible, and that's just what it's going to be. And I've never met anybody who did their first project and then was like, this is my favorite thing ever, in the moment. Later, when they look back at it, maybe they'll have fond memories, but in the moment they will feel like it's just not good. And it's just knowing when to let it go, and let the stone fall back down the mountain to make this Sisyphean thing.
Yeah, and I like a thing that I heard Mark Juliana say once in an interview, that he aims to create a body of work that is, meaning the collective whole of every album that he creates, like that on a whole should be good, but not to be too precious about any individual album, which is, it comes back to what we were saying about not being too precious about any individual show.
Yeah. It's harder to do, of course, when it's an album, because
because you have the option to go back and change
that's
things.
kind of like the point of an album.
Yeah.
All right, we missed a super chat.
Okay.
What is your favorite mode and why? I am partial to Dorian Flat 2 and Mixolydian Flat 6.
Dang.
What mode are you? Is the drummer?
Locrian's pretty hip.
Locrian. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-doo-doo. Is Sungazer going to go on a tour? At some point, we're trying to put together some things in Europe, because Shawn is spending so much time in Europe now, and might be moving or is moving. Or we're trying to figure out the
visas and all that, but
the visa stuff. So something in Europe is actually a lot more likely than something in the U.S. right now. But we are kind of in the process of starting the project up again. One, because it was kind of like moribund for a while, and then two, at some point.
Totally.
Hey, Alan Larev, by the way, we've answered your question, just FYI. We answered it a while ago, so stop spamming. Thanks. Whales are against Backboy. Hey, this guy, it's a drummer.
Okay.
Hey, I'm a drummer who's been on rest for a few months because of a bad wrist sprain. I'm wondering if you've had any experience while needing to take long breaks from playing and coming back to it.
All right. Well, this is an issue normally with technique. So the whole point of technique is that it should accomplish two things. One is that you are able to play drums with it. Okay, so it's good for that. And the other is to avoid injury. And fortunately, I think I focused on the basics of technique early enough on that I haven't had any serious injuries. So I would maybe go to a drum teacher and see what you're doing. But I can also tell you, I tend to play with a wrist sort of motion like this. This is a very good and powerful sort of stroke. One thing you want to watch out for is moving your wrist sideways like this, because these are much weaker muscles. So if you play like this, you're going to be much more likely to hurt yourself. And I know somebody that has done that, and they had to take a lot of time off. I don't know what your issue is, but that's one thing to be aware of. And then also, I keep this gap open here between my thumb and my finger, so it's not tight like this, because once it becomes tight like that, it tightens up everything inside the wrist, and that puts you at risk for tendinitis and stuff like that. So try and keep it loose, relaxed. If you're using a wrist technique, try and do it flat like that. And if you're using a finger-based technique, try not to close up this gap.
Like keeping dick is what somebody said. I was like, okay, great. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing Shawn talk about that stuff, because, technique between different instruments is very different, because different instruments require different physical approaches. But the thing that I always say about bass playing is you should always keep a straight wrist, which, of course, when you play drums, that is not a straight wrist. But at the same time, the idea of not tensing your hand up so that the muscles in the wrist aren't tense, and then that leads to carpal tunnel. By nature of playing bass, you're going to have to tense some muscles in your fingers, because you have to actually take the energy from your hand and put it into the strings to hold it down. And so that's why I keep saying that you should keep a straight wrist on your instruments. It's not because of the straight wrist itself. It's just making sure that you're not tense and you're relaxed when you're playing. So I think there's some universal principles: being relaxed, being focused, and knowing how to transfer energy most efficiently from the rest of your body into your hands. I think those are fairly universal technique concepts across any sort of instrument. But anyway, all right, Eenie, Mine, do you see any questions? So many questions.
Jeez. Yeah, this is crazy, dude.
Are you ever coming to Italy?
Spero di sì.
Shawn,
actually, probably in
Yeah, when are you going to Italy?
Actually, I think I might be playing there in February. I don't know where, but come hang out.
Oh, jeez.
We'll see. I don't know if those shows are confirmed or public yet, but possibly February, March.
Kind of music you lean to when just chilling. Okay, so let me let me play you what I listen to when just chilling.
Okay.
This is really, I don't chill that often and listen to music. Honestly, when I listen to music, I mainly let's see this album. When I listen to music, or sorry, when I am just chilling, I listen to podcasts more than music. And we were having this discussion earlier, and this might sound super depressing for some people, but when your entire life is music, and when you are just thinking about music and obsessing about music and performing music and creating music and just thinking about music, the time when you aren't doing that, the last thing that you want to do is listen to music. Just because it's going to jade you, it's going to turn you off so quickly to so many different things. So podcasts are incredibly popular among musicians because it's a way of listening to something, relaxing, chilling out, and having somebody talk about, like, I don't know, what's a podcast? Freakonomics Radio.
Yeah.
I like Freakonomics Radio. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's true. And often I find like I sometimes can't relax to music because I'm just listening to it and focusing on it. And that's also why I can't do work like
forget that.
while listening to
No.
music. I mean, unless you're hanging out in a coffee shop and there's something in the background, that's fine. But I can't listen to music while I do anything else because I just end up focusing on the music.
Yeah, and then you don't want music to turn into background noise also. Like, the more that...
Interesting.
That's the way that I generally feel about it, is whenever music's on in the background, it's this decoration, it's this like wallpaper, and then every interesting thing about it is relegated to the background. And so when I listen for fun, because I do listen for fun, or maybe it's not so much fun, maybe just it's research or just checking something out to like hear how somebody does something or whatever. That's what I'm doing. I'm literally just sitting there listening. It's not like it's not this background thing.
Right.
But what I was going to say, kind of somewhat ironically, for I have these microtonal etudes. What's the weirdest one?
Oh, he's gone off the deep end, guys.
Oh yeah, I've been checking out a lot of microtonal music. So this I listen to for fun.
But hearing you explain the theory behind all this the other day was super interesting. I mean, it goes really deep. I mean, it's cool.
So this is music in 18-tone equal temperament. So this is equal division of the octave in 18 tones, and it's I'm doing this completely as a troll right now. But this is Easley Blackwood's microtonal compositions, and it's kind of hilarious. But I've been getting really into. It's intense. It actually sounds really cool, like almost quasi Rite of Spring, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I've been checking out a lot of that stuff recently. If you were asking about what I've been listening to right now, it's that, and people are like, okay, all right, I'm cool, chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know you were, yeah. Or sorry, what?
Well, I was gonna say it's just. I mean, some of it is really out, but there was some of them that are they're close-ish to the normal 12-tone stuff we hear, and it had this just kind of weird alien feeling where everything was just like a little bit more spaced out, but kind of familiar. Very strange just to experience that and try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's like, and I hate to say it this way, but like, sometimes just hearing something that I legitimately have never heard before is enough to like really inspire me. And that happens a lot with electronic music, honestly, but it also happens whenever I listen to something like, I don't know, something like Aruban music or something like some like folkloric South American music, or like stuff that I just is not within my frame of reference at all. That's like a really fun thing for me to hear. And, you know, listening to the 9 millionth gent metal song in a row, like,
yeah,
is not the most inspiring thing for me right now. But
yeah, well, the new stuff is cool because at this point you've studied so much and heard so much that it's rarer and rarer that you come across something new.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Well, I know you were actually, I want to bring that up. What was the name of that Dorian concept?
Yeah, let's find that one. It's a really cool band.
What's the name of the Draft Culture? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Is this the one that you were?
Yeah. Let it go for a second. I think the part we're going to talk about comes up in a second.
Okay, so this is something that we were talking about. Just let's listen to this. This is Dorian Concepts Draft Culture.
Here we go. All right. So how are you hearing it?
Okay, so the question is how are we hearing this right now? So where 1 is, I'm hearing 1 right here. 1.
And I'm hearing it. 1.
1. It's so weird. Like we're hearing where 1 is in 2 entirely separate places. Sorry, guys. I realize we might have missed a question or two. Unsub, I guess. I would have taken back my donation. I knew it. Didn't read it. I'm sorry. There was a couple of these that we missed, these super chats. So
let's do them.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's the case. I don't see. Okay, Robert, I see where you did it. I'm sorry about that. Adam Neely, I keep writing very similar sounding songs. How can I fix that? Also, will you critique a demo of mine, not in a video? Critiquing stuff, first of all, guys, if you want me to critique your stuff, I don't really give private lessons and private things anymore, but in the future I might open that stuff up. Private lessons are a fair amount of my time, and if you're talking about a specific critique of a demo or something like that, you can eventually schedule a Skype lesson. I'm going to work on setting some of that stuff up in the next couple of months. In terms of writing very similar sounding songs, try listening to more music. I think that's the big thing in terms of like being able to change your perspective and change what you do in terms of like your outlook. Because like listening to things like Dorian culture or microtonal music, you can't help but like be influenced by different things. So I'm sorry I didn't get to see that earlier. I'm sorry for us kind of like going off the deep rails and talking about whatever the hell we want. I do want to be able to get to all these super chats. So Fractal, other than transcribing, is there any way that you recommend to train your ear? I want to be able to improvise with a band and be a better aspiring bassist. I think transcribing is honestly the best thing in terms of being able to listen to something and then trying to write it down. One of the things that I do all the time is transcribe pop songs because, you know, doing the whole event bassist thing, which being able to listen to something and write it down and then just doing that over and over and over again, like in terms of like writing out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of charts and listening to what the bass player is doing, that really helps a lot because like we were saying earlier, it sucks to give this as an answer, but the more you do something, the better it is you are at it. But anyway, what are your thoughts on transcribing?
Yeah, do it. One specific piece of advice I can give that I liked from Guthrie Govan, or I think it's actually pronounced Guthrie Govan.
I was called out on that actually.
Yeah.
Guthrie Govan.
Yeah, the guitarist for the Aristocrats and other things. He used to do transcriptions of guitar stuff for a magazine in the UK, I believe. And one of the things that he says was to do selective transcription. So not transcribing the entire piece, but only the pieces that you don't understand yet or the pieces that you want to learn. So that'll save you time and also keep you focused on learning new stuff.
That's a good idea. I mean, I know for a while I was feeling guilty that I didn't transcribe every jazz solo that I listened to, because that's something that everybody said you should listen to jazz solos and then transcribe them, and I really didn't care about that. But what I did care about was like playing cool funky bass lines or learning cool chord progressions and then trying to do exactly that, like transcribe what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because what you do understand, you can transcribe already. You can just write it down. It's not,
because then it's just busy work.
Exactly. And you know, it does help a lot to be able to play a bunch of different things. And I do think that learning repertoire, learning a lot of different songs can be incredibly useful for a person, because the process of learning a song can be streamlined. The process of anticipating the ups and downs of music can be streamlined, but at the same time, it becomes busy work at some point.
Right.
But that's a little bit further down the line. In the beginning, it helps the more that you do.
Right.
Isn't most video game music Japanese prog rock? I actually don't play that many video games. I know I am a slave to.
Oh, but even the old stuff is kind of proggy.
That's true.
Yeah.
There was something like in Donkey Kong Country, or maybe it was Mario Kart, that was like in 15, 16 or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
I was listening
wouldn't surprise me.
That was ridiculous. Yeah, some of those chiptunes things are pretty insane. Anyway.
Yeah.
Excuse me. How can you be sure if you should study music? I would like to, but I'm not sure I like it enough because I don't have the urge to play for 10 hours a day. Very few people have the urge to play for 10 hours a day. Nobody, in fact, I think, has the urge maybe to play 10 hours a day, but not to practice. And practicing and playing are two separate things. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
And even if you have the urge, I think there are very few people that get close to actually practicing 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I maybe did that once or twice in my 2 days out of my life. So it's a lot of time.
Well, I did this like 5 hours of practicing video, which was ridiculous, honestly. And I because I was like live streaming the whole thing, it was, you know, I was kept honest. Like I guess I could take breaks, but I did it for 5 hours straight, nothing else. And it was ridiculous. Like I never have done anything like that straight before. And, you know, you have all these people on message boards and forums saying like, oh, I practice 8 hours a day constantly, and that's what you should do. And like, nah, you don't. I don't see that happening.
If you were doing that, you wouldn't be on this forum right here.
Yeah, really. I will say this. After that 5 hour session, I felt pretty good about my playing.
Yeah.
I felt pretty good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I can play pretty well.
I mean, I had some periods of like 4 hours a day that went on for quite a long time.
And I was his roommate at the time. And
it's been horrible.
Oh, it was great. He would practice like
well, at one point I had to go get a drum space, the practice space.
Well, it was fine, but it was like I remember that because he had this like electronic kit that he would set up and just play for hours and hours.
While Adam was composing, I mean, we were just always doing music.
Yeah, in fact, this is funny. In some of the older videos of mine, in fact, I can tell you exactly which video it is. It is playing chords on bass number 6. You can hear Shawn practicing in the background because there's just like a thump, thump, thump in the background, which I find hilarious. Okay. Question. I am challenging Adam to post a video of him playing African rumba bass. The song is Double Double by Nyumba Miandido. Not going to do that. It sounds like it would be really fun, but I'll check it out. I'll check the song out, but the amount of time and like energy it takes to like learn things and then post them on the internet.
Too much.
Why do jazz musicians seem to not care if their music sounds good? Are they that pretentious? I'm gonna half agree with that. That. Yeah, I mean, okay. One of the most amazing musicians I've ever studied under. He's just one of the genius beyond all geniuses. Was a guy by the name of Dave Liebman, who played with Miles Davis's band for 10 years. He's this like curmudgeonly guy from Brooklyn. That's just his attitude and how he talks and everything. But the way that somebody says, like, why doesn't it like feel good? Why doesn't it sound good? And his response to that, what is this feeling good bullshit? Like he really hated the idea of something sounding good and that being like the measure of like how good something is, which I at the time I was like, what the hell do you mean? But I understood what he was getting at, because if something is immediately digestible, that does not mean that it's good. And if something isn't immediately digestible, that doesn't mean that it isn't good. It just might mean that your ear needs to expand in order to accept whatever this thing is. Like, you know, if you can't understand Shakespearean English on the first read and can't understand all of the double entendres and all the jokes and all the other stuff in the language of Shakespeare at the first time that you read it, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that you haven't gotten all the in-jokes, quote unquote, for it. And it's not a good thing and it's not a bad thing. It's just that's the way that kind of art needs to be consumed. You have to go into it with a different mindset than, say, something, I don't know, easier to understand, but nonetheless it can be good. I don't know. That's
I would notice something when I was at Berkeley, for example, and into some really out there prog stuff like Planet X and you know, different like Virgil Donati stuff, or like guys like that. I would notice that there would be certain things that I hated the first time I listened to it because I didn't know the time signature, I didn't understand it. But as soon as I learned it and I like got into it, I was like, okay, this is 11/16, and now I can feel that naturally as I'm listening to it. Then it was the only thing I wanted to listen to, because there was like, you know, not a lot of people doing stuff like that, and it was like, oh, this is the only guy that understands me, you know. So like I gravitated to records like that and would listen to them over and over and over, but only after I could understand them.
Yeah. And it's a seductive sort of thing too, like, because then once you understand it, you think that like it's just much more, you feel like part of this in club of the things that you only you can understand, right? Which is cool, and it but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only kind of music that's good. In fact, it makes absolutely no bearing on whether music is good or not. It's just, this is music that requires it requires you to understand something in order to get it. Anyway, I think that is an interesting thing.
Totally.
Shawn, do you listen to Japanese music as part of learning the language? Oh yeah, we got that one. Yeah. That one. So the music doesn't seem to help Shawn, but for others maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah, it has its place. And actually, something we didn't talk about is there is a really cool method that uses music for beginners to learn pronunciation.
Oh, okay.
Called the mimic method. If you want to check it out, if you want to get a really good accent, they have this whole system where you like learn to rap in different languages, basically. And what's really cool about that is, you know, one of the best, I mean, the best thing you can do when you start learning a language is learn the pronunciation first, so that you're not like struggling with it later, and it makes the everything easier to remember. And you know, it's better to set your pronunciation habits at the beginning rather than have to fix them later. But one of the things you have to do, just like playing an instrument, is you have to train your mouth to make those motions. Yeah. So you have to train your ears, and then you have to train your mouth. And in order to get your mouth to do those reliably, you have to practice and you have to repeat. And basically the only way to repeat saying a bunch of these sounds over and over again is to use music. That's, you know, it's one of the only ways to do it that doesn't get super boring. So they have a cool system.
Yeah, that's really smart. Yeah. That's fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. Whoa. So how do you compose music? Do you... Oh, geez, so many questions. Sorry, I'm just like picking questions at random. Sorry, guys. So how do you compose music? Do you get themes and melodies just popping in your head, or you have to sit down and really methodologically work them out? Both. I mean, sometimes, honestly, the simplest, when you're composing this, you normally work from a simple idea. And in fact, this is perfect. This is perfect discussion for what Shawn and I did yesterday, because we literally just had a groove concept before anything. That was literally it. Like, we were doing a Sungazer session, and I guess we composed it together. Like
Yeah.
there was a simple idea, like halftime groove.
Right.
Halftime groove. Yeah.
That was the starting point, and then we would just jam on that. It seemed like the system that worked for us yesterday was we would do one take that was kind of like the rough draft.
Right.
One
Yeah.
or two takes to sort of like get a really rough form of the ideas without being too nitpicky. You know, we
Yeah.
just kind of like need to get through the song once and make a bunch of mistakes, listen back, and then go back and do like the real take.
It was an interesting process, and it kind of mimicked, you know, when I'm composing something alone, like writing out something, listening to it, coming back later, changing a bunch of things, going back. It's like it's a drafting process. But it was just a very unique workflow because we were in the studio paying for the studio time as we were doing it. But it's every process is the same, but it's different. Every process is different, but the sort of I feel like the thing is the same in terms of it being like you're it's like a block of marble that you're like chipping away at, and you're like trying to find the nugget there, but it's not like coming fully formed. You have to like you have to shape it. You have to like every decision is a small decision. It's a detailed decision, and the details build up.
Yeah.
So the end result might seem like it was like just this gift from the muses, and that it just like came, but it's never what it is. Like maybe like a simple melodic idea, a simple phrase will be that gift from the muses, but you really have to like work around it.
Totally.
I noticed that Amy Nolte was in here. How's it going, Amy? Yeah, I love your channel.
Yeah.
Tips on playing Mozart. I'm actually not a big fan of Mozart, and I'm okay saying that. I can just say I don't like Mozart a whole lot. I don't know why, but I do like Amadeus. The movie is great. Do you think language has an influence on music because of different words and noises languages provide, especially for singing? All right, Shawn. As our resident language expert.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it must. I don't know if I can speak specifically towards music. I mean, certainly it will have an effect on the kinds of things you can express. And that's because in any given language, you're going to have a slightly different way to think. You know, like words are just a way to sort of symbolize and organize our thoughts. And so when you learn a new language, you learn a new way to think. And sometimes it's a very, very different way to think. You know, something like Japanese is so backwards compared to English. It's very, I don't know, it's very interesting. So I would say it has to have an effect.
The part of the Leonard Bernstein lectures was him like positing that music came from language, or like music singing was like a proto language, or there's something back and forth in terms of how pitch perception is directly as a result of our evolutionarily a result of us needing to understand language. So it's this sort of like symbiotic relationship between the two of them. Why we can tell different pitches apart so precisely too. Like we can very clearly tell what a major third is, or very clearly tell what a perfect fifth is, and that came from language. But we don't really have that's pure hypothesis, right? But
yeah, it could be.
Cool.
And something Curtis Comando was saying something about, like in Italian, where the stress is placed has an effect, and also like a language like Italian or Spanish or something, pretty much all like adjectives end in a or o, and so it's a lot easier to rhyme in those languages. And even the nouns are often, you know, they have a very limited set of endings for many of these words that are that are very frequently used.
True. And I'm wondering, that's a really interesting thing from a musical and then historical perspective, why that also might have come about. Like, nobody can really say, but anyway. Can you guys share your thoughts on how a person's personality can assist one's ability to get a gig over an overly skilled musician with a bad attitude? Oh, yes.
Yeah. No, that's important.
That's probably the most important part. At a certain point, it's just assumed that you can play music well. And the people who get the gigs are the ones who are easy to work with and have a positive outlook, or at least are able to put on a professional positive outlook, because, you know, a big part of it is just being a good hang.
Yeah. Oh,
I guess
man,
probably the biggest part of it.
especially if you're going to go on the road with somebody and you're going to be trapped with them in an airport, on planes and hotels, and just 24/7 for an extended period of time. They got to be like reasonably cool as people.
Yeah.
To do that. Even to do I don't know, a wedding gig is a long event as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's important.
Well, we occupy very different like spaces in professional music in terms of a touring pop musician or touring musician with a pop artist, and then an event musician. But at the same time, the stresses are very, very different. But at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be how well can you keep your composure, saying yes to or like knowing what you can do and saying yes and being positive and productive, and not letting small things affect you, and if they do affect you, removing yourself from the situation so it doesn't affect other people. Those are important things. I think those, because nobody cares if you can play music if you're a dick.
Yeah.
You're not playing music that often when you're hanging out. And in fact, most of being a professional musician is not playing music that often. It's mostly about logistics and spending time with other people in order to get to the point where you then do play music. And then afterwards, you have to spend time with those same people to get to the next event where you're going to play music. Like, there's so much of it which is non-music related, and it then becomes people related. So, yeah.
100%.
How hard is it to get a career in music? Also, does it depend on the instrument that you play? I'm trying to get into jazz, and I play trombone. First of all, trombone is a very difficult instrument to make a career with, because not a lot of I won't say this. I won't say not a lot of, but it's not nearly in demand as, say, guitar, drums, bass, keys, your bread and butter for like the pop acts, for corporate gigs, for all the sorts of things that pay and would give you a huge career. That said, brass bands are becoming much more popular, and you can definitely get work in theater doing low brass. There's all sorts of opportunities for you if you're a brass musician and a trombone player. Now, in terms of broadly, like, how hard is it to get a career in music?
Oh, God. I mean, it's got to be a necessity for you. You can't just like kind of want to do it, because you're going to have to go through a lot to make that happen, because it's so competitive. I mean, who wouldn't want to do this? There's so many people trying, and you've got to have that obsessive personality about that to practice to get to a level where you can compete, and then you got to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices for a long time to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. Voice just cracked. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess somebody said this once, like, if you cannot imagine your life without doing music all the time, then you are going to make a life doing professional music, no matter what. Like, if you can't imagine that being an important part of your life at every step of the way, then you're going to do that. And that, before going to Berkeley, that kind of was what I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. It was almost like, especially going to Berkeley was like, kind of solidified that, because that's kind of what you do in music school, is you do music a lot
of music,
too much music.
Yeah. So
anyway,
and maybe another thing nowadays is you should probably also look at getting into production and stuff. That's what a lot of those, like Too Many Zoos, Lucky Chops, I see they're mentioning here.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that, because I just was hanging out with Josh from Lucky Chops. Anyway, the completely different completely different subject. I just was highlighting that for later, but like the production stuff is important. I'm self-taught in production. Most musicians I know are self-taught in production.
Yeah.
They just like, all right, I need to learn Ableton Live now.
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna download a cracked copy and learn, and maybe eventually buy the real one, which I did only relatively recently, by the way. Shh, don't tell anybody, but he says, as there are 427 people Yeah, it was relatively recently. I won't say exactly when I bought the real copy, but most people I know have a cracked copy up until a certain point where it just makes more sense to actually own the thing.
I kind of made a promise to myself that as soon as I was making enough from using Ableton,
exactly, it was the same thing,
that I would buy it, and that's what I did.
And it's like, okay, well, I have the YouTube channel. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm actually using it with the YouTube channel. Should buy it. And for you, it was like, well, I'm using it on the road,
on tour, and stuff.
It's like, all right, I should buy it.
Yeah.
And it's half a moral thing, and then it's also half a practical thing when you have the actual copy of it versus a cracked copy. The cracked copy is better, there's so much less stable, and you can't rely upon Ableton for anything. So anyway, but for people who are just starting out, cracking, that's what a lot of people do. Just being able to experiment and learn and grow.
Yeah.
And that is like the stuff that's very important for beginning people to. Sorry, I'm clicking around.
That's
here.
all good.
Do you actually know any of the guys of Stimpy Lockjaw? Yeah, I know Kevin Theodore. Kevin.
Yeah, we played together. Yeah.
Kevin played on a session that we did together.
And I've met the singer.
Is that Ever Forthright? Right.
That was the Kevin connection, right? That's what that was. Never mind. Yeah.
Which is Stimpy Lockjaw is like this offshoot of Ever Forthright, which is a metal band. Yeah, Ableton Live Lite is and Live Intro are good if you want to be legal and not pay.
And somebody also mentioned Reaper, which is yeah, it's a cool alternative.
That would be the legal alternative that would get you into production and like recording, and it's like $60 or something, like totally
it's like
reasonable.
Depends on the level you're using at. You can pay a different price or something.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I've only heard amazing things about Reaper, and that fact that it's like essentially the same sort of thing as Logic or Pro Tools, but just for a more budget conscious sort of a person, which is great, great to have. Cool. Hey, Adam, I'm 19 and looking to study music at a university, but I never took any music courses before. How behind would I be if I go to university? It depends on what university you go to, honestly. I don't know. How much did you study in terms of theory before Berkeley?
Well, as far as rhythmic stuff goes, I was super deep into it, and I could have passed like all of the final Berkeley exams for rhythm stuff on the day I walked in, but I had almost zero experience with the theory of like melody and harmony, and so I had to be in the beginner class for that. And the way that they were doing it at the time is, and maybe still, is that they're taught in parallel. So even though my rhythm was really advanced, I had to go through the beginning class because I sucked at harmony and everything else.
It's very different for different people, because at least at Berkeley, they test you into the class that they test you into different classes, basically. So even if you have no experience, I don't want to say it this way, but there were singers who went to Berkeley, and singers with absolutely no rhythm or harmony or any sort of experience whatsoever, and there was a place for them too. I was able to get into one of the higher level ear training courses, but because Berkeley is on a solfege system, I had never done any solfege before, and I was expected to do some crazy solfege right off the bat because of like how they tested me into it. So that was a weird thing. I mean, I feel like any kind of school will be able to test you into the right places. I think most programs are designed so that you don't need any theory in order to actually start it. Most programs, like, you do your audition, right? Which is like, this is me playing something. That's how you get into the school.
Right.
And then after that, they teach you the theory.
Right. So I guess I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
In that case, but.
Excuse me. I have to drink
so many questions.
Yeah, I know. I feel so bad, but when we're doing it like this, it's like, it's pretty. Just have to pick a question.
Yeah.
All right, Shawn, you pick.
All right. What do we got here?
You can use that if you want to.
Here's a question for you. Should the envelope filter get placed before or after fuzz to get a nice synthy tone?
After the fuzz for the synthy tones. Before the fuzz to get more of a wah effect. That's how like guitarists use like they put the wah pedal before the overdrive, which gets a more traditional sort of thing, but the wah pedal after the overdrive gives it a really crazy synthy sort of filter thing. So for me and my bass stuff, fuzz first, then filter.
Nice.
Very, very important. Somebody keeps saying, "Notice me, please, senpai."
Ooh.
All right, I'll notice you. Hey, Adam, how would you care sharing me what is the first step to learning jazz, or rather where I would start, and share your experience with starting out? Starting jazz, that's a tricky one, man. Buy the real book, I guess. Learn jazz is kind of a tricky music because jazz is a tricky music because it requires a strong knowledge of theory before you attempt it, in terms of like learning how to improvise on your instrument. So like learning your scales, learning your modes, learning your chords, that's all very important before you even start attempting to play jazz. The first thing I'll say for any new person is to learn the solo, learn Miles Davis's solo on Kind of Blue. Just learn that note for note. Come back to me when you have learned that. On drums, what would you say? All right, I know this.
A good question. Yeah, I would say, I don't know, it's kind of the same thing. I don't know.
Gotcha. Sorry. I know you're looking at that.
There's a question. What was the name of the book you mentioned that teaches you how to rap in any language? It's not a book. It's actually an online thing. It's called The Mimic Method. So check it out. And they actually have a really cool system where you log in. And, like I did this for French. I didn't complete the course, but I did most of it. And so you can like log in and record yourself, and they have this whole thing with SoundCloud where you can get feedback from people like within 24 hours on this thing, and then you resubmit. And
that's cool. That's cool.
So it's called the Mimic Method.
I know you also use for learning italki. Is that
italki? Yeah, italki is a website for finding speakers of any language, like really anything, and you can talk with them on Skype, either for free if you're willing to speak English half of the time, or another language half the time, or if you just want to get a teacher and pay for like $5 for a half hour, like that's what I do. It's super cheap and efficient.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And also I will say that the number one resource probably for me that has helped me learn languages is called Fluent Forever. It's a book that explains like how to learn languages super efficiently, and I think it's the fastest way that is out there right now. And I've like looked at everything, and they just are coming out with this new app. They're doing a Kickstarter right now. It's called Fluent Forever, and it's now the #1 highest funded app on Kickstarter ever.
Oh,
they've like,
hold on, let me like check that out.
Yeah, check it out. And if you guys are at all interested in this app is going to make the process even faster and a lot easier for people that don't want to get into technical stuff with flashcards and stuff. This will make it much easier.
Is this?
No, this is not it. That's the old one they did. It's that second one.
Holy crap!
Almost $350,000 raised in like a week, and I'm really hoping they can push that up to $700,000 by the end of the month, because
is that like something
then they'll start supporting Japanese and Chinese.
Like for
it's a very self-interested.
So if anybody wants to donate $300,000 to Kickstarter,
that's right.
Adam Neely, when's your Scott's Bass Lessons video coming out? It should be coming out in December. I just got word from the SBL team that the thing should be coming out in September, and Shawn will be part on that. He will be playing drums for.
That was fun.
We did some Sungazer tunes on it. It should be fun.
And the lessons Adam did were really cool too. I was in the control room listening.
Totally forget what I talked about. I blacked out during the whole thing. It was like, harmonics, polyrhythms, harmonic series.
It's deep.
It was fun. It was fun. I have no idea how they're gonna like brand that with Scott's Bass Lessons, because it's not bass related at all. I mean, the Sungazer stuff is, because we talk about bass playing and music playing. But anyway, sorry, I just wanted to get to the super chat so we don't lose it. What's your take on gospel or gospel inspired music? You don't strike me as religious, but I was curious your take on it in terms of bass. Any tips? I'm not particularly religious in the sense of me going to church, but I have a strong cultural tie to religion because my family is religious in terms of being Presbyterian. But in terms of gospel music, I don't have a lot of experience, but I did play the NYU gospel choir concert like 4 years ago, and that's my experience with gospel music, and it was so much fun. It was it was cool so stuff. Like high energy, and they're just notes flying every which way, and just like it was awesome. Yeah. It was really awesome. So I don't have too much in the experience of actually doing it in church, which I feel like is more necessary to like really get into the music. But it's interesting. The one thing I will say is doing that music, it was like at such a high energy level the entire time, which was almost physically exhausting, because normally like music has peaks and valleys. Like in order to get it up to the high level, you want to like make it like quiet so that the high level like is that much more impactful. But the gospel stuff was like just at at a million the entire way through. It was fun though.
Totally.
Have you done any of that or?
No, not really. I mean, there's some awesome gospel chop kind of guys at Berkeley, and I don't know. I think it's really cool to listen to, but I didn't really get into the scene too deeply.
Matt Garska of
dude, he's so sick.
Matt Garska of Animals as Leaders went to school with us, and he was definitely known as more of a gospel drummer before he became known as a metal,
like metal, whatever. I mean, he's a really versatile guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was this whole culture at Berkeley of like the drum sheds where there'd be like 8 drummers. They all like get together and have these ridiculous just drum jams, which I never did. I think that's where a lot of those guys developed those chops.
Yeah, there's some videos I've seen online of some of that stuff.
And I think you got some.
Yes, let me get to the super chats. Thoughts on one-man band albums a la Jacob Collier? I think it's great. I think having more people involved is always more inspiring than just doing it all yourself. But of course, doing it all yourself makes it easier for you to achieve a vision. And I don't know. I like making records with other people though.
Yeah, I like the idea of kind of doing what you are strong at, and then like handing off the other parts to people that are good at those elements. Kind of like in Sungazer, how I just kind of play drums and then I let Adam work his magic on the composition and production.
Yeah, I am terrible at programming drums, so thank God I don't need to do that. Thank God Shawn will be able to play real drums and play them awesomely. I know that's kind of how like Brass Tracks works. Like Brass Tracks is basically mostly Ivan Jackson. Sorry, Ivan Jackson, that's a stage name. Playing and doing production and stuff, and Connor just playing drums, but the live drum element, man, it sounds so good. Range Shortcuts writes, do you think taking music courses at a local community college is worth the cost? Also, I love Sungazer, please more. That's awesome. Well, I mean, community college is a lot cheaper than Berkeley and like music school, so I would say yes, no matter what the community college is. I would say go take your classes and get that education for like an entirely reasonable rate. I think that's my take on it. Have you ever done any community college things? Or
I did, not for music courses, but for all the other stuff. I think that's a smart move. I think you did that too for some of your Berkeley stuff. You transferred liberal arts credits. I mean, it's a lot cheaper, and it's the same thing, guys.
Well, for like anything that's not music related, I actually went to University of Maryland, which might as well be a community college. Right. It's anybody who went
to a real college.
Anybody who went to University of Maryland will hate me.
Here comes the trolls. Yeah.
But in terms of how I used University of Maryland, that's what I did. You should just let Rick Beato adopt you. Okay, he has his own kids. In case you haven't noticed, he has some kids that he has already. I don't think he needs a grown man and grown men to be his kids.
There's a question about.
Sorry. Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Do you think that music is a language, or that the concept of genre is more accurate? You know, there's definitely parallels between music and language, and I don't know exactly what they are, but I can tell you my experience, and that is that I feel a similar like state of mind and a similar urge to learn different languages. I mean, mainly because I'm traveling and spending time with people using these other languages, but it's the same feeling that I get about wanting to learn a bunch of styles of music. So I don't
Yeah.
know what the connection is there, but there's something about like I want to be able to function in any of these situations and do it authentically, and get whatever I can out of it.
Yeah, like you know, the Victor Wooten, you know, Victor Wooten, as amazing a bass player he is, his main influence on me has been more educational, like how he approaches education and music education, and also how he thinks about music. And the big thing he talks about is the language analogy, in terms of how we learn music is so similar to how we learn language. And you know, there's actually this really great book I was reading called Emotion and Meaning in Music, and how music is so language like, and that it attempts to communicate something. Now the question is the question of what it communicates semantic, meaning like this note means dog or whatever, like,
Right.
or what else it attempts to communicate. Like we can agree that music means something, but what is that meaning?
Right.
And it's a really interesting question, where language never has that problem. Language means something because that's what that is, and there's a one-to-one relationship between these sounds and this thing, and how you arrange these sounds in terms is like your relationship to this thing. I drink the lukewarm coffee, and like I don't know.
Well, and I guess if you want to really like hurt your brain, what happens when you get into the other layers of language where you say one thing but you mean another?
Oh yeah.
You know, like, yeah, dude, I totally think I can make it to the party on Saturday. You're like, nah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because then there's so much subtext which is just completely irrelevant. Yeah, it's what came before, what's going to come after, your relationship to the speaker,
Right.
Tone, pitch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The implied stuff is really interesting.
So what just happened? We just going, yeah. That's in reference to something that happened maybe 45 minutes ago or half an hour ago, where we were talking about pitch and this relationship to language. And so
Right.
all these little things go into how we communicate using language that go way beyond the actual grammar. The same thing in music, I guess, is a lot more subtextual, but to music it's even more subtextual, to the point where we can't even pinpoint it. And many people have tried, and Leonard Bernstein has definitely tried with his like language of music, grammar, like concepts like tension and release. Releasing tension gives cathartic release, etc., etc. There's all different ways of saying that music can mean different things, but yeah.
And I think that one reason we're able to play well together and do something like we did yesterday and sort of improvise on the spot in the studio is because we have this long history of not only playing music, but like spending late nights talking about different things. And, you know, like we know each other very well musically, so we're able to make a lot of these split-second decisions while playing without talking about it.
Yeah, it's very that's the interesting, the relationships, both musical, linguistic, and then personal between people, and just how that relates to communication, the general idea of communication. Anyway.
Take psychedelics to understand language.
Well,
you will understand every language.
All at once.
All
every
at once.
language ever spoken and ever will be spoken, you will understand, and you will become one.
Yes.
I have a friend and we both love jazz. Do you think we should jam? I don't think you should love jazz. Yeah, jam. Why not? Like a lot of these questions, a lot of the things, like, you know, I feel like you should, the more you do things, the better you will be at those things. Nice.
That's a new video. What? By the way, Adam, did you see the Nate Wood video?
Oh yeah, there's been multiple.
There have been multiple.
Yeah, and he's a freak of nature.
It's ridiculous.
If you haven't checked out Nate Wood's multiple videos, what does he call it? He calls it 4?
Yeah, I think so. With a lowercase f.
Yep, 4.
Yeah.
Nate Wood is the drummer for Knee Body and a variety of other projects, and he has this. I have a good story about Nate Wood in a second, but he has this whole project where he just is alone in a room. He's playing keys, bass guitar, drums, and singing at the same time. Which
sounds like a gimmick, but it's not. Like the way he does it is so
sounds musical.
Good.
It sounds like, holy crap, this just sounds like a song. But I think that's really cool about the fact that it's just him doing it is he can relate, he can improvise with himself in a way that other people wouldn't be able to do, in terms of like being able to like really lock in with himself as a bass player slash drummer.
Right.
He's gonna be locked in
Totally.
and anticipate whatever it is he does. It's so cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, so my story about Nate Wood is I've always known Nate Wood as a drummer and bass player, and just ridiculous at both.
Yeah.
And I walk into Rockwood Stage 1 one day, and I'm like walking, the music's like happening. It's like, oh, this is cool. And Nate Wood is singing and playing guitar and leading a band. He has a band where he sings and plays guitar.
Of course he does.
And it was really good. And I was like, oh God, this guy is, and he looks like Vladimir Putin also, kind of. So it's like Vladimir Putin is playing guitar and singing, and he's just like amazing. Anyway, Play the Mind asks thoughts on Soul Ray Soul, and I was working on a video on Soul Ray Soul. Soul Ray Soul is this constructed language. Have you ever heard of this?
No, tell me about that.
Soul Ray Soul is this constructed language which was made in the early 19th century by a French doctor. I don't know. And the whole concept is that the language is based upon, all the letters of the language are do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. So that's the language. The letters themselves are the musical scale, and then combination of those letters produce different words. So like Soul Ray, or Soul Ray Soul is language in Soul Ray Soul. And there's different like things like Soul Mi is good and Mi Soul is bad. So the reverse is like things. There's all these like weird little quirks in the language. But the interesting thing about it is that it can be written so many different ways. You can write it as actual music. You can write it as Soul Ray, whatever. So there's this isomorphism between the language, the letters, and music that's really fascinating. And this was an invented language before Esperanto and before a lot of the other auxiliary languages. And it's fascinating. It also doesn't sound like very good music. I've messed with it trying to like translate different like things to try and like make music that makes sense. It wasn't conceived with music in mind. It's just using the materials of music to create language, and I found that really interesting.
I wonder if anybody used that as like a code language? They could,
like a cipher, like
secretly communicate using musical scores.
No, I don't think. But there is a website I found at one point. I'm still going to do this video at some point about Soul Ray Soul because I think it's really interesting. But there is a video that does that, a website that does that can create musical ciphers, and there's different ways of like hiding the ciphers because you can. It's really fascinating, the whole thing, and I don't really understand all of it, so I can't like talk about it right now. I don't want to talk about it if I don't understand it as well as I need to. But anyway, so that's Soul Ray Soul. Thoughts on Tigran Hamasyan?
Awesome. Rock and roll. That's the Makrut album that you did with the trio is one of my favorite albums from the last couple of years.
Yeah,
dig it a lot. Really cool rhythmic stuff. Really cool metal plus jazz.
It's jazz metal done right. Like it's not jazz metal as like this is the heavy section and this is the section with major seventh chords or like whatever. Like I think Cynic and Atheist and some of those technical death metal bands are called jazz metal sometimes, but Tigran Hamasyan, Makrut, that's pretty jazz metal. It's pretty damn jazz metal. Yeah, it's awesome. Opinions on participatory versus presentational music. In traditional African music, this is interesting. In traditional African music, is traditional African music even the same art form as Western music? Could workshops and inclusivity of beginners be good for the West? That's interesting because, we normally think that music is something that you perform and people watch versus something that you do as a group. Yep. And, the way that you do music as a group, I grew up in, bringing back to religion, I grew up in church, like Presbyterian churches, singing hymns. And that was, growing up, that was actually like the most participatory sort of thing that I did. And only afterwards was it more of a performance sort of thing for me. And, I think that it's participatory whenever I play music because I'm playing music with people here around me, but it's like it's never set up as, it's always like there's a divide. There's the audience and the people performing. And that seems like in African music, that's rarely the case, or at least in a lot of different kinds of West African music. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, like sort of divide or like between?
Well, I mean, honestly, I have so little experience with the actual I mean, with that kind of music, the participatory music. I don't know.
Like, you're not going down to the drum circle and every.
Once I did actually. Last summer, I think it was, I played a gig at this really hippie festival somewhere in Massachusetts or something.
Right.
Like,
well,
whatever. So yeah, so we played this festival, and then afterwards they had all of this like bonfires and drum circles and all that stuff, and it was kind of out there. But I went. I was like, I'm not doing anything else, so I want to go to this fire circle, like, and they have a whole thing where like everybody's moving around.
Yeah.
And by the end of the night, I ended up playing drums on the sidelines.
Nice.
With everybody. That's
fun.
Funny and probably not surprising that that's where I ended up.
So playing drums. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I did when Justine and I were in London. We did a ukulele jam. It was like 20 people in a room, just with like that like. Is at a bar. It's like, but here, have a ukulele, and we'll play like "Toxic" by Britney Spears, and like Sweet Home Alabama. I don't know. Yeah, Sweet Home Alabama. I don't know. It was really strange. It was really out, but a lot of fun too. So,
yeah.
Thoughts on the new Dark Glass gear that came out today? What did Dark Glass come out with today? Dark Glass pedal. Just Dark Glass. Dark Glass is a company that I dig. It's a bass pedal company.
Cool.
I have no idea what. Oh, they come out more affordable. Okay, I don't really care. Never mind. I was excited for a second. I was like, oh, I don't really care about any of this. Hey, Adam and Shawn, any tips on breaking into bougie and stifled scene like the one in Toronto? From electronic production to jazz, the market is not prepared to take any chances it sucks.
Oh, boy.
Move to a different city? I don't know. Yeah, that's what most people do, is they move to a different city to find more opportunity.
It's tough. I mean, I guess from the booker's point of view, they want to see somebody that has a track record. You know, they can, and I think that if you can prove that you can bring people to the show, they would take a second look at it. But I don't know. Maybe even looking online as one way to start gathering influence. Yeah,
and you know, there's getting an audience online is. The most, I mean, that's how I did it. Like nobody in New York gives a shit about some bass player except other session musicians. They'll come and hang out and see. And you know, our first Sungazer shows that we did a year or two ago, the only people in the audience were our fellow friends and fellow musicians. I'm sure if we did some shows sooner or like more recently, meaning closer to now, closer to right. This moment in time versus that moment in time, there would be other people who had like heard of us online, but that's usually what it is. Finding an audience is important, and you know, your niche audience, your electronic music, your jazz music, your mumblecore, your chiptunes, I don't know, whatever weird music. There's probably not going to be a huge local scene for that, but there will be a scene online. So you know, Shawn asked, or somebody for Shawn, best tutorials on home recording drums. Did you learn drum recording online? I learned
some stuff. Good question. Nothing comes to mind immediately. There's like a YouTube channel I was following for a while. A guy that does a bunch of home recording tips. I don't remember the name of it. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, well.
For Ableton, I remember Tom Cosm was awesome.
Tom Cosm.
The like no BS Ableton tutorials or whatever.
Yeah, there's something about Tom Cosm's tutorials that are so much more inspiring than any of the others. My girlfriend right now is actually learning a lot of Ableton stuff, and you know, I got the Skillshare account because I did an ad with Skillshare, so I still have the account, and you know, they have good like tutorials on there and good Ableton tutorial, good Logic tutorial. You got a Lynda account, same sorts of things, like all these professional development things. And they're all really great for like a general like knowledge of a bunch of stuff. But in terms of inspiring you to make music, Tom Cosm's stuff is like,
it's great.
Is great. Yeah. So I like Tom Cosm. Mr. Bill is also great. His stuff is a little bit more esoteric because he is a little bit more of an esoteric person. And also, like, I think Tom Cosm's a better teacher. But those two, Tom Cosm and Mr. Bill, their Ableton tutorials are awesome.
Totally.
Adam, have you ever tried Lindy Fralin pickups? I have not, but Ryan Gleason, I feel like, has Lindy Fralin. I don't know. Ryan? I don't know. No, he I was just thinking he has those kinds of pickups. I don't know. I
No.
I don't know why I asked you, like, what pickups does this bass player that we vaguely know
I
play?
use the.
What pickups do you use on your drums?
Yeah, they're old. I forgot.
Hey, Adam, how do I write for eWees and or jazz flute? Very carefully. On your iPad, what software do you use to organize sheet music?
Oh. Can I take this one?
Yes, Sean.
Do you want to talk while I get my iPad?
Okay.
Well,
cool. I'm going to grab my iPad. I do this every live stream. Like somebody asked this and I like enthusiastically grab my iPad and then I try and show it in the camera and the exposure doesn't quite work. So let's see if it works right now. Oh, you can see the iPad. Okay, great. Fantastic. So I use two, but Sean's is probably way more organized. I use Fourscore. Oh, you can't see it. You cannot see it. There we go.
We're such nerds.
Okay.
Well, great.
Sean, what do you use?
I use.
There we go.
Fourscore, but I have
the brightness right.
I have a 2-step process.
Okay, how does Sean do it? He is so much more organized than I am.
Yeah, I have I still have a paper binder full of cover band wedding songs. It's probably like 600 songs in there with my own notes written in there. The way that I do it is I start in a program called InkFlow or InkFlow Plus, which is just like a sketch pad. And let me show you here. We'll try it.
I think you gotta get the brightness. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I think the brightness is too high.
It's way too high.
Way too high. Oh, that looks amazing though.
Okay, hang on.
It looks incredible, guys. What he's doing. What are they talking about now? We're talking about iPads.
Can you see?
Yeah. Wait. There we go.
So
sort of.
I've got my notes written on here, and what's really cool about this program is that you can like select stuff and you can move pieces that you've drawn.
Actually, let's get it closer. Let's see. There we go. That's it.
So this is like the form of a song. Those are measure numbers and my notes for that song. And it's really easy to like grab a chunk so you can draw or whatever. And then you can grab a chunk.
This is so stupid.
Exciting. And then I'm doing this in the camera.
You can move it
and resize it. And anyway, so that's how I make my charts, and then I export those all as PDFs and store them in Fourscore, and then I back them up on Dropbox.
So every live stream I've done, I've gotten excited to share this shit, and then it just looks terrible.
Cares.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
It's like these things are like, these are the things that get us excited, is organizing and just making our lives easier.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I use, I don't use Fourscore for most of it. Actually, I use Adobe Acrobat because, check this out, with Adobe Acrobat, let me see if I can.
And Tom, by the way, the app is called InkFlow.
Oh,
is the one you can move.
Yeah,
stuff.
InkFlow. The thing with Adobe Acrobat, and if you can see this kind of on the side, there's like letter names all along here. You definitely can't see that at all. But anyway, along the side, there's like different letter names. So if, like, somebody calls a song really quickly, like, oh, I don't know, like, I loved her first, right? Okay, I loved her first. Boom. And it's like within 2 seconds, you can do it like that versus, you know, like.
Well, that's one thing I like about Fourscore too, is that you can search. And so that'll even get like a part of the title in the middle or whatever.
Well, can you do it with the thing on the side? Because if you,
I don't know.
If you do that and like type,
I guess it's slow, but
yeah, it really is like those seconds like really will matter.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
True.
The other thing is like vertical scrolling is a lot easier on this, like in terms of like vertical like that, which you can't do in Fourscore, which I like better. Anyway,
cool.
All right, we're done with the boring stuff. We're going to talk about music and music related stuff, and it's going to be so much more interesting than any of this nonsense that we've been talking about. Hi, Bill. Somebody said hi, Bill. Okay, cool. Adam, have you used the fractal formula for a vocal effect yet? No, I haven't. The fractal formula is really stupid. All those videos I made about fractals are really, they're more a means for just learning about relationships of polyrhythms and rhythmic effects versus talking about fractal effects. It sounds really stupid. Anyway.
Yeah.
Any tips on, I'm just like going through a bunch real quick.
Yeah.
Are Guitar Heroes really dead? Satriani's and Vi's. Oh, do you have any thoughts on like the idea of a guitar hero or like a drum hero or like?
Oh, there's a few out there. I mean, the Tosin.
Is this? Oh yeah, that is right. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I thought, yeah.
Yeah, you got Tosin Abasi. There's still Guthrie. I mean, he came slightly before that, but he's still shredding. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, Tosin Abasi was like definitely this generation.
He's like the
Steve Vai.
Yeah, he's
like,
the guy right now.
Steve Vai. He's like the guitar god. I mean, I would say like some of the other like gent people, like maybe Pliny. Is one.
Misha
Mansour, yeah. He's like not known as much for shred, but just in terms of being an inspiring guitarist, producer, musician. Yeah, I mean, like those guys that's the new generation. When so many people say like, "Oh, guitar is dead" and whatever, like, no, you just haven't listened to any music recently or paid any attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean Lane. I wouldn't say Sean Lane is a guitar god for this. He wasn't he like from, I don't know. Do you know Sean Lane at all?
I know of him. Yeah.
He was a little older, I think. Thoughts on Samuel Andreev's channel? Oh, yeah. Samuel Andreev is this contemporary classical musical composer, and he has these really interesting and in-depth like analyses of music on like in his music on his channel, and in ways that is like pretty impressive actually.
So who is I don't know the channel.
It's called Samuel Andreev.
Okay.
Andreev. Yeah, Samuel Andreev. He is, if you like, that's the hardcore shit. That's like the 12-tone shit.
Okay.
But he's really like good at explaining, and it's very engaging, and he does it in a very like approachable way, but it's pretty damn hardcore. It's cool.
Nice.
Anyway, maybe you pick a question. Do you have a question?
Thoughts on Opeth? They're cool. Thoughts on Square Pusher?
They're cool.
I dig it.
What did you make of the Ultra Visitor Abbott album? Haven't listened to it.
I think that was one of the older ones. I mean, that was kind of when I discovered it, like 2006 or 7, something like that. Yeah, it's sick.
Thoughts on Julian Lage? He's awesome. I like this when people just say thoughts on.
Yeah.
Justin Chancellor, Tools bassist. Great.
Cool.
Wolfpack.
We like all
Awesome.
music.
Any love for Wolfpack? Great.
Thoughts on busking?
Oh yeah, do you want to tell our story?
Well, we did a little bit of that back in the day.
Busking, yeah. So for a while there was a lot of stuff involved with that busking. We were looking for ways of making money doing music. We were looking for desperately.
We were eating spaghetti every night.
Yeah.
And
So it was me, Sean, and this guitarist by the name of Elliot Klein, who's shown up in a few videos. We're roommates for about 5 years, and we were like a band, I guess. And we went about like trying to like develop our career as professional musicians and doing just that, not like taking any other side jobs or anything like that. And that, of course, devolved pretty quickly. But the way that we figured would be like the best way of doing that in New York, just to make money every time we played, was to busk. And they had like this band, I guess, this busking band called the L Train.
The L Train, right?
That was Elliot singing and playing guitar, me playing upright bass, and Sean playing cajon and playing country music
and singing
and trying to sing in 3-part harmony, and it was miserable. But we were like, this is how we do it, because I don't know why. This is how we do it.
And it actually eventually turned into a band that we did some gigs with real drums and loud guitars, and it was cool.
It almost turned into like almost a jam band, right? Like sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
I'd say. And here's what I'd say about busking, if I had to sum up the tips. Okay, so we eventually discovered that you pick your stations, you find the train stations.
Yep.
And you find the ones that are the highest traffic, the best acoustics.
Yeah.
And then we would go during rush hour, like for 1 or 2 hours, and we would just go in and get out. And that was the most efficient way to do that.
Yeah, it was about $50 a piece, maybe, on a good
run,
like an hour or whatever. And it was not. We didn't do it as well as I feel like. I feel like if you were just a single person singing and doing it, whatever, you would probably have a better money per hour.
Yeah.
But you would get exhausted much more quickly, I think, and it probably would be a little bit more demoralizing. The way that like Too Many Zoos and Lucky Chops did it was they had like an exciting brass band, and like that's like, you know, that's easy to make a lot of money when you have like that sort of thing. But you know, I felt like what station If you're looking to busk, I think it's
Rockefeller.
Rockefeller. We did a lot. We also did.
What was that, like 59th?
We did 59th.
and Lex?
59th and Lex was good because it was a large platform which could fit a band, but like only 2 trains on either side, so it never got too loud. So that was good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's our busking stuff. Thoughts on Adam eating cheeseburgers? I don't do that.
Eat his buggers.
Oh, his boogers. Am I eating my? No, I'm not eating my boogers.
Are they called buggers somewhere?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe where Alberto is from. What the fuck is theoretically happening in Outekker's music? That is like some pretty intense IDM, like electronic or intelligent dance music. IDM. It's not electronic dance music.
Right.
It's intelligent dance music.
Yes.
Oh shit. Adam Shawn, can you talk about Inside Outside?
yeah,
I listen to the album every day until I'm out of free streams and really should buy it.
Oh, cool.
You can do whatever you want. We might put it on Spotify at some point.
Yeah. And they said, "Did you have a falling out?" No, we did not have a falling out.
Yeah.
In fact, I
fuck Wim.
Yeah.
Fuck him. I'm never talking to that guy again. Yeah.
No.
Tell the story.
I saw Wim recently, or maybe last year. I was in Europe. He's in Belgium now, so that's the reason we haven't been doing anything. Is that we were in New York and he moved back to Belgium.
So Wim Leysen, the story of Inside Outside is that it started as this Belgian pianist composer decided it basically started this band for his graduate recital at the Manhattan School of Music. He wrote some music. It was pretty cool. We were like, we should like turn this into a band, and we sort of did. We recorded an album, and then he moved back to Belgium, and then he never came back to the US, but he came back like once to just do like this mini tour, which was really kind of a sad tour. It wasn't very good. It was fine for what it was at the time, but nobody had heard of us, and we just went to a bunch of these places. We went to this in Boston. We did a couple things, and anyway.
Yeah, that was a cool project. That was where I and Adam also developed a lot of our electronic stuff. I mean, that was sort of the experimental band where we came up with a lot of those concepts.
Yeah, it was kind of the genesis for Sungazer in a lot of ways. I mean, Sungazer was definitely more the American side of the band, having free reign on stuff, because Wim's like compositions were very like dark and brooding, and it was interesting, like a very different vibe, and very different sorts of sounds, and very interesting, and a good complement and counterbalance to the more literal and aggressive sorts of things that Shawn and I were doing, if that makes any sense. But anyway, that was Inside Outside. We didn't have a falling out. He just lives in Europe now, so that's what it is.
You never know.
Story time. Tell us about some of your downfalls in your music career. What misconceptions do you have before you actually started your careers? Oh, okay. What misconceptions?
Who wants to go first?
My misconception was that I would never be able to make any money or make a living doing anything remotely creative. And then I started a YouTube channel, and now I get to do creative things all the time. So I think that's a big thing for me. But that's a more recent development, I guess.
I think one of my misconceptions was that at Berkeley I was a double major of performance and music business.
Oh, yeah.
And I did the music business thing because I wanted to be serious and smart about this and like know what was happening in the business side so I could actually make a living doing this. And I thought that was the smart, like realistic thing to do. And it turned out that degree had absolutely nothing to do with the music business as a performer. So the performance, if I were to do it again, I would do only performance and use that time to practice more, because the music business degree at Berkeley is a good program if you want to work in a label or like be behind the scenes with something, but it had nothing to do with like, figuring out how to make money as a player.
I like have heard that a bunch. Like there's a very big demand for that field, music business as a performer, like how, like, things like that, like like little things like, how should you join the union?
I've never
did they like talk about that? Well, like in New York it might be a good idea, like
right.
I've been a member of the union in the past. don't think I technically am now, but like there's reasons why that might happen. But nobody would ever talk about that in a music business program, I don't think, right? Or do they?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Anyway, yeah. What other misconceptions? I remember you like got this. You had a job offer at the Orchard. Was that the place? Yeah.
Right. So I came to New York and I had an internship at the Orchard, which is a digital distribution thing. So they put music on iTunes and Spotify and stuff, and they do a lot of it. They're one of the biggest companies for that. No, and actually that was the plan, is I was going to do this internship, try and get a job there to support myself, like in the meantime, while trying to figure out the music in New York. And actually, by the time I finished the internship, they didn't have any spots available. And so then I was like, well, I guess I just have to figure this music thing out. So I just dove completely into that, doing as much session work as I could, trying just to barely scrape by. And then at some point later, I ran into someone and they said, hey, we might be looking for somebody. And at that point, I was so deep into music, it wasn't practical, and it wasn't the path I wanted to take anymore.
Yeah, it was also interesting what we collectively, you, me, and Elliot Klein, decided to do in terms of like pursue music was very much the idea of backing songwriters was a big thing for us. We were like, yeah, we're gonna back songwriters, and that's what we're gonna do, and become like great pop musicians and musicians that way. And it was definitely a great learning experience. But the problem is there's only one person out of all of those, I feel like, who's still doing it. Maybe one or two, and that's Mickey Blue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea was we know all of these songwriters and singers, and that's how people get gigs, right? And we didn't think that these were all like unknown people who just came out of Berkeley and they don't have any money, so...
Yeah, no money to actually pay us, so it was like paying like $40 gigs constantly, or not even that, like a lot of times for free.
But I don't know. In the end, I mean, we learned so much from that experience.
That's true. Yeah,
maybe it was worth it, but
it's hard to say that was bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Here's a question. What are your ages? I am What did I just turn? I just turned 29.
I'm 29.
So about to hit 30.
Yeah.
About to hit 30.
Yeah.
We're real people, sort of. Cool. I'm planning on an acoustic gig in my hometown. Any tips on the topic? An acoustic gig. I don't really quite know what that like.
I don't know. Like you're singing and playing guitar or piano or something. I assume.
Yeah. Tips on the topic. For acoustic things, turn down the PA as quiet as you can on the PA. Trust me, it's going to be a better sound system or better sound experience. Unless you have a sound guy who really knows what they're doing, but chances are for a small acoustic hometown gig, you're not going to have the most ideal sound system, and your sound guy is not going to be a road-worn genius of the sound. So the quieter the PA is, the better. I think that's usually my experience. There's this thing called Sofar sounds. Have you done any Sofar sounds yet?
I haven't.
Okay,
I've been so busy. But.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely more a local thing.
Yeah.
But the best Sofar sounds I ever have are literally just unamplified guitar and voice, because it just ends up being a better listening experience, especially if you know the good acoustics are good and the people playing are good. You know, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but
totally.
Pure acoustic is usually a good thing. Tell us something you're really good at but is really unusual. Butterfly knife flipping, beating certain video games really fast, etc. Let's see. Is there a pencil around here? I can do like the flipping. Let's see if I can do it with this. No, I can't really do it with that. I can like flip a...
That's your secret skill?
That's my secret skill. I can flip a pen like around my thumb like that. I'm trying to do it with this. It doesn't quite... Oh! Almost. No, okay. What can you do?
Let's see.
I can...
I'm not bad at mini golf. That's my thing.
I feel like Adam can do cool skateboard tricks. Definitely can't. I can belch the alphabet. Oh God, I'm not going to do that right now though.
I've seen it though.
Yeah, I've seen it. Trust me. Hey Adam, what are your thoughts on bassist YouTuber named Walter Cabas? I really like his slap style and his musical ideas and bass lines he creates are amazing. I don't know him at all. Sorry. Thoughts on thoughts, as in THOTS. Yes. Is Exigence the greatest musical piece of the 21st century? Where can I get the audio apart from reaping it from YouTube? It's on Bandcamp. Just search Exigence Bandcamp. You can download it on Bandcamp. Yeah,
Let's see.
Any good questions here?
I'll scroll up.
I don't know. Best waveform.
Hey, Sean, what's that say?
Shit. Best waveform.
Oh, do you speak any other language?
Do you speak any other language, Sean?
Yeah, I speak French and Italian. Mainly those. I'm learning Japanese. I speak a bit of Spanish and a bit of Norwegian, but I wouldn't say I'm fluent in those. And some random phrases for travel in other languages.
Do you know any German or Arabic? Or...
Ich spreche kein Deutsch. Ein Bier bitte. That's nice. I know two phrases in German.
Nice. It's more than I know. I know Nein and Danke.
Ja.
That's about it. And ja. How to incorporate polyrhythms into pop music? Any thoughts on using math to compose music? Well, I have this video called the 4/3 polyrhythm in pop music. It's not, and a bunch of people have said like, oh, that's not really a polyrhythm. And maybe I can ask you, Sean, like, do you think dotted eighth notes are a polyrhythm, or
I don't know. Do you think hitting every 5th, 16th note is a polyrhythm?
I do. I'm a believer that it doesn't really matter what you conceptualize it as. At the bare minimum, you're hitting, this group of notes is hitting every 4 times for every 5 times this other group of notes is hitting. So it is a polyrhythm, even though it isn't a tuplet. I think a tuplet is a way of expressing a polyrhythm. Right. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it counts. It's a different kind of thing. It's a, call it what you want, polymeter,
yeah.
It is a polyrhythm in a way.
But the thing that I said is like, if I just put a tuplet across it, is it then a polyrhythm?
Tricky.
Is it like, because it was notated as a polyrhythm, is it then a polyrhythm? Or is it, and there's different ways of like notating the 4/3 that look stupid. Like tuplets across the bar line and all sorts of, just dumb. God. But it's the same music as if you just use the 16th note syncopation. So
it's more of a naming convention thing and a theory, just how you write it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the term polyrhythm is a catch-all, or should be a catch-all, for any time you're measuring ratios between rhythmic streams of thought, versus a tuplet, which is just, I mean, you could then say like 11 tuplets or whatever, but like it's more of a notational convenience. There's overlap, I think, but normal rhythms are already complex enough to play, right? That's very true.
Totally. I mean, playing a simple song well is hard. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, how well you can play a simple song. Like, if anybody can play it, it's the person who is the best at playing it will get the gig. If you think about it that way. If anybody can play a simple rhythm, the person who is best at it is the one who people will care about the most. Nobody will care about it if you play a simple rhythm poorly, right. Or poorly or boringly or whatever. So just make that simple thing feel as good as possible. Any thoughts on how to deal with your own insecurities when composing? Do you have them? Do you feel like all I do is cheesy and shitty? It's been done before.
Please answer that, because
constantly
coming from a like completely 100% drumming background. Anytime I try and dive into writing something else, I have such a hard time. It just does not come intuitively at all, like the melody and harmony aspects.
Well, I mean, I like to think of it the same way as like you're starting over from scratch, like you're starting a new instrument from scratch. The problem with composing versus learning an instrument, or maybe learning language, is there's very little structure in terms of how people have learned how to compose. There's no like methodology to it. It's more about just doing it a lot. And the thing I like to say is you have to constantly ask the question, do I like it? And if the answer is no, it was really demoralizing. So if you are constantly like writing something, say like this is something that I wrote, it sounds like shit to you, and you realize that it sounds like shit, the correct answer is not to agonize over it and to figure out like how I can change it to make it not sound like shit. The correct answer is to look for something else entirely and throw away what it is you did, which can be incredibly hard to do, especially if you spend a lot of time on something and it sounds like whatever.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to say because I've been doing it a long time. When I started composing, hold on, I'm going to try and find something right now. But I started composing when I was in high school. Oh my God, this would be amazing if I could find it.
And go ahead.
Well,
I have something I want to ask you about this composing stuff too. After this.
Oh, maybe it's in a different hard drive.
Oh, no.
Crap. All right, well, it's in a different hard drive. We'll listen to it later. But, the stuff that I wrote in high school was dog shit. It was not very good. I had very little experience. I did have a lot of theoretical knowledge because I had been studying music and also blah, blah, blah for years in high school. But the stuff that I wrote was just not very good. I just like inputted notes into Sibelius and then hoped that something interesting would happen. It only was after many years, of course, I studied formally, but studying formally is not a panacea by any stretch. Studying formally only means that you have a formal environment to do it regularly. So, like, I was writing something new every week.
Okay.
Boom.
So
like,
that's the key? Or...
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, like, with... You're not going to get better at drumming if you just suck at drumming and then feel bad at yourself because you suck at drumming. But, it's a question that gets asked a lot, and I think it's a hard question to answer because it's not like, how do I get from here to here? There's very little of a formal educational system in place of getting from here to here. In a general sense, like specifically, like if you want to learn how to write 19th century counterpoint, you can. There's many books on like how to write it, like and going through all these steps. But if I want to write like electronic dance music, nobody's written the book on how to do that yet, or like how to do that. I mean, there's many YouTube tutorials, I guess, that will help you out, but the only way of getting better is doing it regularly. So,
well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's say you were going to coach me specifically. So
okay.
I have this situation where I have very in-depth knowledge of rhythm.
Right.
And actually, I know the musical theory behind the scales and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I have very little musical experience actually writing music.
Okay.
If you had to personally coach me and take me to a reasonably high level, let's say like writing a short EP in 6 months.
Okay.
What would you suggest that I do? Like what exercises, resources?
Yeah. Okay. So I would start, and this is interesting, because we did talk about this at one point. Ben Levin has this series called "Let's Write with a Plan."
Yeah.
And he's I was talking to Ben the other day on the phone. Ben Levin does these incredibly deep dives into his compositional process. Incredibly deep, and just he puts a webcam in front of him it's not a webcam, he just films himself working in Finale. That's all he does, and it's like like hours and hours and hours of footage of just him composing, which can be really fascinating and inspiring. But it also gets at the heart of the matter, which is like it's a very uncertain process. Is like, does this sound good? Maybe. And so you have to keep doing this. But the main thing with Ben's series is like coming up with a formal plan. Like in this song, there's going to be an A section, there's going to be a B section, there's going to be whatever, and we're going to like organize it like that, which is kind of similar to how we were thinking like for Sungazer.
Yeah.
And thinking along the lines of like what each section, the feeling of each section and what that's going to be. And when you start and say like an A section, like coming up with a simple chord progression that fits that thing. And it can be very simple. And honestly, the simpler something is, the better. Like, okay, the simple chord progression is going to be C, A minor 7, C, A minor 7. Really, really simple. Like, but then Emile Sandé's Next to Me, I think there's a pop song that's really that was popular a couple years ago. That was literally C, A minor 7. That was all it was. But the interest comes from how that C, A minor 7 changes from section to section. So in this section, you're thinking C, A minor 7, but with like this particular sort of like I don't know, like chord or sound, this particular sound. And then C, A minor 7 in this section has a different sound. So you're always thinking contrasts between different sections. How do I contrast this section to this section? How does this section feel in relationship to this section? So maybe for the first section, you write a melody, and this melody is very based on wide intervals. But then another section, you're thinking, okay, well, this melody is going to be based on small intervals. So you're always thinking a contrast between like light and dark, whatever and whatever between each sort of thing. And I think that thing that I got from Ben's series on Let's Write with a Plan is going into it, coming up with as many parameters of contrast as you possibly can, like quiet, loud, blah, blah, blah. And it's all very simple. It's all very simple. And any individual element you're trying to throw at something is in service of this grander formal scheme. And that's one way of approaching it. If you especially have the like weird chords, like I like this weird chord. I know, like I forget what it was, but I played something of yours. There's some weird chords in it. But they're hits. They're like weird chords and hits.
Yeah, okay, I remember that. Yeah.
I don't know. I've played some of your stuff before, but it was clearly conceived around like these are the hits that I want to do, and then I'm going to find a chord, which is actually a perfectly valid like way of approaching it too. It's just like the more you do it, the more you kind of hone in on the chords that you want to like throw on there. Yeah. And if this all sounds to anybody out there, if it sounds too like weird, not weird, vague. If it sounds vague, because it is vague. When you're trying to like talk about composition in a general sense, it's going to be very vague versus like, I want to write this kind of composition and this kind of sort of thing. So if it's like the Sungazer things, the process for the Sungazer things just is normally very drum centric because Shawn's drums are normally the thing that like we build the compositions around. And then after he builds, plays the drums, I'll be looking for like places. Well, first of all, I'll get into the feel of the different grooves that he does because he normally like switches into different sections at certain points. So I'll just like listen to how that sort of like feels and whatever. So if it's a very sparse section, I'll be thinking like real sparse sounds coming different ways. But I'll then also be thinking about how to tie the sounds to the drums. So like kick sounds are normally low sounds, and so tying kick samples and things to the low sounds, that might be one way of doing it. But it's very based upon like how do I get a certain sound for sections, and everything is in service of that sound. It's very generic. It's not super like I'm trying to think of like a good way of breaking it down into something more specific and pragmatic, but I think that idea of sectional formal thinking can be very useful. Not worrying too much about grand, compositional things, which are like theme and like developments of themes and like long, like much more complicated things. The simpler you are to start, the more that you can build on it from there. Anyway,
that helps.
I think cool. that's stuff. That's a hard thing to do other than just do it a lot.
Right. Cool.
Anyway, let's get back to questions. Any questions you want to
let's see. I was so enraptured by your
by my
explanation
monologue.
here. Let's see.
A lot of stuff. There's a lot of Adam stuff. Any questions for Shawn? Sorry, I don't want to like ignore everybody's Adam questions, but I do want to make this about Shawn because he's leaving to Zurich in a few hours.
What did you get from Berkeley that you won't get with your own research?
Ooh, that's cool.
I think the big thing is the environment there, just being surrounded by all the musicians. So I mean, it all comes down to the people. So the environment is one component, and just the relationships you make there. I think that's the big one. And sometimes specific teachers, whether it's at Berkeley or another place, that can be another reason. Like I know Adam with Jim McNeely and other teachers, and me, the guy Mike Mangini was the teacher that I really connected with. Not only like musically, but just the way he teaches. We were very much on the same page. So that was one factor for me.
Mangini, by the way, is the current drummer for Dream Theater. And in case anybody didn't know,
for the last like 7 years or something.
It's been 7 years. Oh,
because he was teaching at Berkeley up until the point that we graduated in 2010 or 2011. He joined. So
that's crazy. Yeah. Shawn, who are your drumming influences? Well, I'm assuming.
Okay, Mangini's one. Virgil Donati, Mark Juliana, Vinny Caliuta, a lot of those fusion guys. What else? I mean, Dennis Chambers, a big one. One of the first guys I got into was Carter Beauford from Dave Matthews, who is a huge Dennis Chambers fan, so no surprise I got into him later.
Nice. Vinny Caliuta is God.
Yeah.
Hi guys, what are your thoughts on using a composition as a learning tool in music theory beginners course? Learning by doing, I suppose. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. It was like it's hard to learn how to compose without composing. It's like if you're taking a writing course, like for how to write, like a creative writing course and how to write a novel, it's kind of impossible to do that course without writing a novel, or like without writing stuff, you know, like it's just basically what it is. You write something and then you have it critiqued, and that's how you learn, rather than like coming from theory specifically. So I think that's very important.
Let's see. Kirk Covington, the drummer for Tribal Tech. I think that the band Tribal Tech was more influential to me than his drumming specifically when I was super into that fusion period. But yeah, a great drummer. And
yeah. Oh man, Tribal Tech.
Yeah, Matt Garska for sure. I mean, we had some classes together at Berkeley, and he was like just ridiculous back then too.
Yeah. What was he had the calf show with was it called the two-man trio, or is that the name of it?
Oh yeah, he had this thing with a guy that played bass and piano at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I remember checking that out. That was pretty cool. Your thoughts on thinking? Well, thinking's pretty sweet. I enjoy thinking. I do it all the time. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Jack DeJohnette, also awesome. Yeah, definitely was. I had a big like straight ahead or just jazz period in Berkeley too.
Shawn, are there any bands you want to like but can't seem to get into?
The Beatles.
How dare you? How dare you? That seems to be actually a common theme. Like a lot of people just don't understand the appeal of the Beatles.
Yep. I don't know. I mean, it's cool, but I don't usually go out of my way to listen to it.
Yeah, I think the Beatles are one of those bands that they're definitely a songwriters band, if that makes any sense. Not a instrumentalist band,
right?
Because there's so much like really in depth way that they construct their songs in terms of like hypermeter, how different like phrase lengths and all that sort of thing, and how those relate to lyrics and all that sort of thing. But in terms of like the sound of the band, like it can feel like it's like a more generic, just on a visceral level. It can feel like it's like the Monkees or anything like from the 60s. It's just this sort of like wash of whatever.
Yeah, it's very well done, but yeah.
Anyway,
well,
we've been doing this for 2 hours. Woo! 2 hours, yeah. I think we might need to
we're gonna turn into a pumpkin here.
I think we might need to call this session. But thank you to Shawn for being my guest on my language and music Q&A, which we mainly talk about music, but we did get some good shots in.
Yeah, and if you want to like go in the deep end with the language stuff, I'm doing this YouTube channel about it this year. So
yes, it sounded like you were being afraid to promote your own channel, but definitely check out Japanese in a Year. Shawn's been doing this channel where basically he does exactly that, and it's really fascinating to watch. Also him like learning Japanese in between touring.
Oh yeah.
Like you can kind of like it's not even really the focus of the channel, but like I've noticed in the comment sections like what do you do as a job?
Yeah, like where are you?
Where are you? What do you do? It's like, oh, I'm a drummer in a touring band. Like
yeah.
It's really fascinating actually. Yeah. But check that out. New Sungazer out at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Some point.
Yeah, it's happening.
Do you want to do a synchronized bass? Like
hell yeah.
So okay. At the end we're going 1, 2, 3 bass. Okay. All right. And until next time, 1, 2, 3. Bass.